Hello my dear students. Today we are going to learn subject History and Political Science, Standard 9, Chapter 1st, Sources of History. Students, till we studied the history of ancient age, medieval age and modern age of India. This year we have to study the history of India in post-independence era. We know that the sources of modern history and medieval history are the difference. Like that, the sources of this medieval and modern history should also difference there. So, when we studied the history of modern age, the sources of difference also. Then which are the sources? Sources are written sources, material sources, oral sources and audiovisual medium sources. Now first one we are going to see the written sources. In written sources includes periodicals, magazines, newspapers, diaries, references books, correspondence, government gazettes, documents in archives, postage stamps, and encyclopedias. Those are includes in written sources. About newspapers, we know that newspaper is the fourth pillar of our democracy. If we consider the period of 1961 to 2000, it should be only depend on print media. There is no alternative to the print media in those periods. With liberalization and widespread use of internet in India, an alternative from print media became available. Student, we know that we use the internet in a whole spread over all India, and so it is a alternate from the print media. But till now the print media continue to be powerful, because at early in the morning we see the newspaper, not by the TV or net there, and so the print media, the newspaper should be powerful today also. By this newspaper we can get information about the national and international affairs. Then we subject for this news that politics, arts, sports, literature, social and culture affairs also. By this one, these incidents we can inform by the print media, that is the newspapers. We know that there are so many newspapers available today. At early in the morning the newspaper we can get. Our father, our grandfather also waiting for the newspaper today, because now it is powerful rather than availability of the net or other sources also. In newspaper contains matter related to human life. For example, about corona, we eagerly waiting for what will happen with human life. When will it get the medicine for the corona? So newspaper plays the important role to give the information about it. Some national newspapers are there. They started their regional editions. Afterwards, they publish supplements that gives information about various types. What happened in our country, in the world, or something about state. They provide the information about us that help us to study the literature or something in our day-to-day life. So newspaper is important. Some newspaper produce special supplements towards the end of the year that take an overview of important events in year. We know that some supplements we get from newspapers. In that supplement, we also find the various type of information. For example, what happened in political, what's happened in literature, what happens in social or considered should be literature. Some newspapers produce special supplements toward the end of the year that take an overview of important events in the year. For example, in year 2000, 2001, what will happen there? Then 2000, 2003, what happened in that year? Special event should be provided by that newspaper with this supplement. Then crickets or politics or literatures or cultures, that event should be studied by these supplements. PTI, Press Trust of India. At 1953, Press Trust of India has been an important source of primary details. It provides us all important events and of articles on important subject. Press Trust of India provided us reports, photographs and articles on financial and scientific issues to the newspaper. Today we see the newspaper, some photographs, some articles, it provided by the PTI, that is Press Trust of India. Nowadays Press Trust of India started online also. During 1990s, it started using satellite broadcast technology, and this material is important for writing the history of modern India. By this information given by the PTI, we can study the modern history. Now, the postage stamp. Postage stamp don't reveal anything on their own, but historian makes them speak. We know that the various postage stamps we can see today, but they can't speak, but historian make them to speak. Several changes, we can see the several changes in the postage stamp since India became independent. It tells us about changing time due to variety in size of stamps, the novelty in their subjects and color schemes. Postal stamp department issues variety of themes like political leaders, flowers, animals, birds and events, or the silver, golden, diamond jubilee, or sanitary, bicentenary, tricentenary of different events. We know that by the postal we can see the various picture on that postage stamp. The picture should be tell us the particular period's information, what's happened in that time, what should be message given by the government to the people. This information tells us by the postage stamps. Now, material sources. First, coins. Second, place of worship. More information about postage stamps. The Indian government issued the Jal Cooper stamp in 1977. Jal Cooper was an internationally acclaimed philatelist, for example, an expert on the subject of postage stamps. Born in a Parsi household in Mumbai, Cooper edited India's Stamp Journal. He was the founder of the first philatelic bureau in India, an office that collected stamps. He founded the Empire of India Philatelic Society. He went on to write many books on this subject. He gave a scientific bent to his hobby. He played a pivotal role in taking the study of Indian postage stamps to the international level. Having started his career as a postage stamp collector, Cooper achieved the expertise of a philatelist at the international level. The postage stamp on Jal Cooper is an important source to understand his significant contribution to this field. We can see this postage stamp in our book, page number 2. Now we are going to learn about material sources, coins, places of worship, things in daily use, royal seals, ornaments, museum, clothing, modern architectures are the material sources. First one, coins. We can understand history with the help of coins. Reserve Bank of India prints the notes. Daily use we notes and coins also. Notes tells us the history about particular period. Likes coins also tells us the history of particular periods. Reserve Bank of India prints the notes and its headquarters is in Mumbai. Coins from 1950 to those used at present tells us the important contemporary issues in India. For example, coins to convey the message of population control and coins communicating the importance of agriculture and of farmers. Now we know that the coins should be tells us the message conveyed by the government. Day to day or period to period, government tells the importance contemporary issues. For example, population control. Then also government tells us the importance of agriculture and the importance of farmer. When we study the coins, when we study the notes, we also observe the various informations about particular periods. Now museum in all over India, we know that all states of India have museums that depicts characteristics and display the culture and social heritage of states. We know that India have the different states and all the states have their own museums. And studying the museum, when we meet the museums, we can see the various aspects like the clothing, like the weapons, like the coins, like so many materials we can get from the museums. It should be unable to understand the history. For example, we can take the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum in Mumbai. When we meet this museum, we can see or we can study the history of Shivaji Maharaj or the particular period. Some private collectors are there. They set up their own museums. This based on distinctive subjects. There are the various subjects of the private collectors. For example, coins. Some collectors made the coins of various collects there and the museum. Then notes, lamps, nut cutters, various in types like this. Cricket equipment is extra. Now students, we are going to learn oral sources, folk tales, Folk songs, proverbs, ballads, ovies, poedas are the oral sources. Activists inspired by the poedas of Lok Shahir Annabhau Sathe and Shahir Amar Sheikh during Sanyukta Maharashtra movement. We know that the poeda tells us the history of particular age by the Shivaji Maharaj poeda, by the Sambhaji Maharaj poeda. We can learn or we can study the history of the particular person and particular period. Audiovisual sources, television, films, internet are called the audiovisual sources or media. Many domestic and foreign television channels come under this. For example, history channels and discovery channels. Nowadays also we or our father also open the discovery channel. Why we see the discovery channel? By this one we eager about our history. The discovery channel tells us what happened in the past. Also history channels tells us what happens in the past. So these channels include audiovisual sources. By these sources we can study or we can write the history in particular period. Film and Television Institute of India. Government of India started it in 1960 at Pune. What is the purpose for establishing it? Students, the government decide to provide education to the people. So they established the Film and Television Institute of India. Indian News Review produced various newsreels on important events in politics, social issues, art, sports and culture. It's also provide various documentaries on permanent social leaders, on people who made major contributions for country. Its news release and documentaries are useful for studying the history of modern India. Now we know that the documentary and films, which person we can see, those person who contribute to our country in the most, who devoted their lives or others for our country, those people should be included in the films or documentary. And by this one we can study the history in particular periods. Students, till now we have seen some important sources. But the time in 21st century are changing rapidly that even sources will prove to be inadequate. We know that the sources should be taken lack because of the rapidly changing of 21st century. For example, landline telephone to cell phone. Students, how many students are there have landline telephone? I know that some students have, but so many students don't have because of changing in our life. A gadget called a pager came up for contacting people. Students, you know the name of gadget, that pager? I know very few students are there known about pager, and so many students don't know the pager. Because of this changing, it should be died out as quickly as it had come up. huge amount information available and internet is used to studying the history. Student, today also if you want some subjects information, we search on our net and we copy or we take the information from the net. So many, the huge amount of information available on the net. But how we know it is true? So we know that the truth and the authenticity of this information needs to be verified. Which information we gathered from the internet, it should be need verified its truthness. Students, now it has become comparatively easy to study history with various sources. Students, we learn in this lesson the sources of history, the various sources of history we learn here, and then in details about the newspapers, coins, museums, we take information in this lesson. Now it has become comparatively easy to study history with sources. सांगली शिक्षण संस्था नावाने सुरू असलेल्या यूट्यूब चॅनेलला सबस्क्राईब करा व त्याच्या शेजारी असणाऱ्या बेल आयकॉनवर क्लिक करा, म्हणजे पुढील व्हिडिओचे नोटिफिकेशन आपणास येत राहील.